Hi guys, welcome back to Stories and Conversations with Rahel. And this November we talk about a very interesting topic, digital healthcare. And I'll be having guests on the show to talk about this particular topic, experts in this field who will demystify this topic and what it means for the Kenya healthcare industry. So tune in, like, comment, and share whatever is of interest to you. And I'm looking forward to reading some of your comments. So, as promised, I had said I would invite guests to talk about this particular topic, digital healthcare. And let me tell you guys, I would have never asked for a better guest. I don't even know. This is such a privilege for me. And thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
But I'll let him first introduce himself so that you understand why this is such an important guest for this particular topic and obviously for the show itself. So, Peter, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Rahel, for having me here. This is the first time I think joining you for your podcast. I look forward to many more. So myself, in terms of first, I'll just start by introducing who I am.
Yes.
Is that my name is Peter Kanda. I am the Chief Information Officer at Getus Children's Hospital. I also sit as the chair to the Digital Health Committee under the KHF, Kenya Healthcare Federation, which encompasses over 100 members within that federation. Apart from that, on the side is my husband to one,
Yes.
father of two boys.
Nice.
And I'll probably say I'm a tech enthusiast,
Yeah.
and I'm also adventurous, and I enjoy traveling and meeting different people and enjoying different foods and culture. Yeah. So that's basically, in a nutshell, who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's one thing you're missing because I hear you mentioning it a lot when we interact, baking.
Yes, I enjoy baking.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I enjoy learning to do new things.
Yeah.
And over the years, you tend to pick up small things. One of the things that I picked up and that really stuck over time now has been baking. Yeah, and the guys in the house have particular pastry they love.
Yeah.
So over the weekend, sometimes they tell me, they challenge me to some new recipes. I try it out. Some of them hit the wall. Some of them have become home favorites. So it's been something that I've been enjoying over the last few years now. Yeah.
Wow. So a techie and a baker, what a combination. Guys, this is such an interesting combination. So, I mean, Peter, I invited you on the show because you are obviously a techie. You've been in the digital healthcare space. I will call it, yes, the digital healthcare space. Even though you're a techie, you've interacted a lot with digital healthcare solutions. And I mean, you chair the digital health committee, yes, for KHF. And that's a very huge position. Yeah, that's a very huge position. But we'll get to talk about that a little bit later. But first, what is your definition of digital healthcare? Yeah.
Digital, basically, it's most of the things touching on the compute, the technologies sitting that touch directly within the healthcare space. Starting just from the simple computing to the transmission, all that basically entails what is digital, and then how it interacts with health. So basically, it's the basic definition. That's what you'll probably say it is: the computing, the communication, the storage of data. Is what I'll probably say is digital, and how it interacts with healthcare. And so that's this basic way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I believe I'm really passionate about, let me talk about what I'm passionate about, is accessibility of affordable healthcare. And this is a topic and an interest that has been talked about for the last couple of years. And obviously, digital healthcare is a proponent to that. Do you believe that this is a solution that would actually address this gap? What do you think about that?
So I personally share with you in the same passion regarding making healthcare affordable to what I say, my fellow Kenyans. And this one is just because of simple thing. You probably went to a public primary school, went to a public secondary school. I know you went to a public secondary school. You went to state.
Okay, public. Yeah, yes.
then you probably went to a public university. And you'll probably realize that all along you're probably born in a public facility also.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
born in a public facility.
Yeah.
And up to the time I got into formal employment, I have used public healthcare.
Yeah.
All the way right through and through. And I'm more passionate towards that because the percentage of Kenyans who actually get to access insurance is only 2.5% to 2.7%. What about the rest of all these guys? How do we make them access healthcare? From where I sit, digital healthcare technologies that sit there sit at the right time to disrupt this and make it actually affordable. So it's true, yes. But there are other components that sit into it that we require different thought process in terms of how we view UHC, universal healthcare coverage. There's a whole different thought process that should work into it that is not limited only to the technology side.
Yeah.
It requires a different thought in terms of even how we get to see the healthcare workforce and how we get to interact with them. How do we get to play with the clinical officers and the nurses and the doctors to be able to make healthcare affordable as much as we are leveraging on the digital healthcare technologies. Yeah.
So let me ask, you've mentioned you're a CIO and you sit at the chair of, such a prestigious organization, and obviously you influence a lot in terms of digital healthcare. So as Peter, what is your role, first of all, as Peter, to influence that change? And also I think let's talk about KHF and the Digital Health Committee and you chairing that committee. How do you influence that change? Because there's a bit of change management that needs to happen. And you've said people need to understand the workforce and all that. And it takes quite a lot. And people don't understand that whole aspect. So what is your role as Peter? And what is your role as the chair of KHF Digital Health Committee?
Okay. So I'll start with KHF. Who is KHF? We have KEPSA, which is the private alliance for all the private sector alliance, which encompasses everybody from manufacturing, banking, all those things, all those organizations that are private on the private sector. And then we have KHF, which is a subsector within KEPSA that focuses on healthcare. So under it, we have different organizations. We have healthcare providers, we have healthcare integrators, we have healthcare innovators. We even have telcos who are sitting within the Kenya Healthcare Federation. And all these organizations are there within one goal to see how we can be able to just improve the healthcare space within the country. There are different committees that sit under KHF. You have a finance committee, all those, and for me, I sit on the digital healthcare committee. So right now we have 12 thematic areas under KHF, which I can't mention all of them. But for us, we under the digital healthcare committee, there are those that we feel that we are passionate about, and some of them will end up touching towards the healthcare financing by making digital healthcare technologies more affordable to the members who sit within KHF. The other one is also trying to see how we can be able to fast track adoption of healthcare technologies by working with relevant partners. This is Ministry of Health, the other regulating bodies that sit within our government frameworks, and seeing how we can be able to fast track some of these technologies so that they can be accessed. So there is a whole subcommittee that will be looking at standardization. Others will be looking at how do we make new technologies affordable, accessible. Also, since we are sitting within the same space with some of the people who are providers, or let's say key enablers for digital health, like telcos, like Safaricom, for example, sits within the same. We are able to work with them to be able to just make some of the components that get factored into the digital healthcare to be more affordable, accessible to the different members within the organization. So we are looking to work on that together. So that's what we basically do within the committee.
Okay. And Peter, what does Peter do to influence that?
So what I get to do?
Yeah.
Personally, on my end is I'm passionate about making healthcare affordable. So there are things that are driving that drive me, and the things that make me tick. We are sitting at a very good opportunity to push for some things like standardization and interoperability. when I go to a place like Cherengani, where my parents are, and when I'm there, let's say I end up falling sick, God forbid, the nearest facility I dash to, the clinical officer, the doctor who's sitting there should be enabled to be able to make a good clinical decision for me. But he wouldn't have access to all my previous clinical history. And that's because we've not enabled ourselves as a country to just make data accessible. We should actually not, we should compete on services. But making data accessible is something that we should all work towards. And now this is what I feel will be my contributions in trying to push within our committee and trying to see how can we work together, how can we collaborate, how can we work with the different healthcare providers, integrators, to achieve one common goal like standardization, interoperability, adopting similar standards, ensuring that the technology that comes into the country has conformed to certain standards that allows interoperability. So those are the things that I would probably say are key.
Interesting. And there's something else that I'd like you to maybe give your insights on, because one of the things that I know in terms of digital health and how it has been pushed, and this conversation has become, one of the most important conversations in the healthcare space, it was accelerated or catalyzed by COVID. That's when digital health became a thing, because in the hospital setting, people did not want to touch things and all that. So do you think we actually have the right solutions in the market right now? And do you believe the solutions that came about because of COVID actually are sustainable to enable that digital healthcare component to actually last for a longer period, and not just because of the COVID era? Because we still have COVID going on. What do you think about that?
To me, I think it's a mix and match.
In
the entire sector, I think it's a mix and match. There are hits and there are misses, definitely. And I feel like we have to put into context where digital health or where the healthcare industry sits. In terms of digital technology, the people who are forefront leading is the financial services industry. They are the forefront. They allocate proper budgets. The innovations that are happening within that space is quite it's quite advanced. I feel like on the top of the pyramid usually sits, that's my own view, I'm not sure whether it's correct or not, but my own view is that at the top of the pyramid, what sits there is actually modeling for your client needs and anticipating their needs and doing modeling even before they even know that they have that need in the first place. And within the financial side, it's already happening, because before even Fuliza, they already know which limit they can give you based on your previous history. They've already done modeling on you. They're like, this particular guy, this is how much. Us in the healthcare industry are still quite far off from that. So as much as COVID came, it forced us to do certain things, but I felt like, my own view is that I feel like we were disrupted a bit, but it's only that we are still laggards in this whole change adoption journey, that we didn't get properly disrupted. Because if you head back, you realize for digital transformation, it's a complete rethink of how you do your stuff. There's the people, there's the process, there's the technology. Technology represents only 15 to 20% of the entire change adoption. The people and the process represent the other entire. And so long as you've not changed the people and the processes, what you'll end up doing, like in the processes, basically what you end up doing is you end up digitizing your paper processes into your system. Instead of asking yourself, where are the duplications here, where are the what can we actually eliminate in this entire process? And each of those touch points actually has a cost to it. And not actually each of those touch points actually end up increasing the cost of care on our part. So yes, we were touched here and there, but we were not properly disrupted. Some insurance companies, as we still speak now, are still taking paper claims even after COVID, which shouldn't have been the case.
When you say that, I'm a little bit worried. I don't know if you're worried, because I mean, healthcare is like a basic need. It's one of the top needs. So if you do not structure it in the proper way, it's decentral, and then there's a lot of issues I mean, people are not able to access the healthcare, services that they need properly. So, I mean, is that worrying? For me, it's worrying. I don't know.
The solution, the technologies are actually available.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are companies that are coming into space. And I feel like there are things that are enabling. For the financial services industries sector, basically what used to happen is they will have enough capital to sort out their computing, their storage. That will not be a headache to them. They could be able to take in as many payloads or they will take in as many processes or compute as much as possible and just absorb it in their capital budgets and stuff. What is happening right now is that things are becoming cheaper. Compute is becoming cheaper. Storage is becoming cheaper. I had the opportunity to actually just go around the city and visit some of the co-location providers in the country. And whatever I saw is actually world-class infrastructure that is within country, which has allowed people like or companies like Amazon to come into country, Facebook, Microsoft, who are now coming and setting up base in country. There's a net positive to that, which means that for companies like Gertrude's, you can actually access some of these services on the cheap now compared to how they were back in the day. It's actually becoming more affordable. And now it allows me to be able to innovate around that space. Because if my compute is affordable, my storage is affordable, connectivity is affordable, it means now we can be able to just take away the headache of managing infrastructure and now focus on disrupting healthcare. So a lot of organizations are now within that space, and it's not all gloom. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see that light, but as you said, there is some light.
There is some light. Have some hope.
Yeah, I have some hope. At least there are some organizations that are already taking it up. Like, I mean, there's Mtiba, there's Savannah, there's there are a lot of companies that are doing quite a bit in the healthcare space, and we are seeing the impact of such organizations and the work that they do. Yeah. And you've talked about something that has really intrigued me. People and processes, that's the bigger chunk of, where change needs to happen. So who needs to influence this change? Is it the insurance companies? Is it you guys, the healthcare practitioners? Who needs to influence that particular change?
First, let me say, some of the companies you mentioned, actually, for me, I feel that they're the key enablers in terms of technology adoption, and they're actually really trying to push for change. And I feel like those guys are our key partners in terms of driving that particular change. On the question you've asked in terms of processes and people, I feel my own view is that you require a different set of thinking. There's a guy called Harry. He's the publisher of DX5. He was former CIO 100. And a month ago, we were in a particular forum, and he actually said that you require complete rethink. And I feel like that is the view that should be taken by executive from the board. That is a complete rethink in terms of how we are going to approach healthcare. And seeing that they're using digital tools as key enablers. IT departments are usually seen as an expense department. Give them some money to spend. They're not seen as a key enabler in terms of driving business. Most CIOs in these organizations do not have sales objectives to drive. And because of that, you'll always be seen as an expense department, and you'll probably never get the opportunity to disrupt enough. So there's starting from the executive, scaling it down, because the way the board, the executives get to view digital is actually how you'll get to adopt it as an organization. For me, I'm lucky at Gertrude at least that the view the board has and the management views technologies, that they see it as the key strategic goal to achieving some of the mandates we have as within our mission and vision. So at least that's a positive. I've seen some organizations that have also done the same, but the opportunities for us to just change it from the executive part. Regarding the healthcare workforce, I'll tell you some some of the things that I've actually been able to view. For us, the key departments that have really innovated the most within the organization that I am in Gertrude's, have been the ones that really want to see. It's been really be down to also some of the cultures within particular departments, and those departments that have really driven their requirements to meet certain needs, and have actually innovated the most over the time. And some of the easiest way for you, if you are an IT head, to know which department is actually innovating the most, just go and sit down and look at the list of requirements or the list of change requests that are coming in, and see which department is actually giving you the most change requests. Those are the guys who are trying to drive change.
Yeah.
And in organizations, sadly, you find that it might happen in silos depending on the different departments and who's heading those departments. That's a headache within an organization culture. But in terms of whether nurses and doctors are able to adopt to tech, I'll tell you that during COVID, one of the guys who actually drove and saw most patient in organization was actually a 60-year-old doctor. Our doctor was over 60 years old. And that for me was the perfect use case to tell you that sometimes it's not down to which generation you belong to.
Yeah.
Anybody can be able to drive change. And the difference actually in that, why that one particularly worked, was just because this user made that request to us, and we chose to just be agile enough to try to accommodate it. And this particular doctor saw quite a number of patients through some of the technologies we had, which was telemedicine at that time.
Yeah. Wow. And thank you for bringing this up, telemedicine, telehealth. Do you think we are actually doing the right thing? Because I know, again, because of COVID, we had a lot of telehealth solutions sprouting up.
Yeah.
Do you think and maybe this is a very, I don't know what kind of a question this is. It's probably vague. I don't know, but maybe you can answer it the way you think best. Do you think we have the right solutions, telehealth solutions in the market? Are they addressing the correct need? Because I feel like everyone feels like because of COVID, then let's bring up or let's have this telehealth solution working in our facility or something of the sort. But none of them has really picked up, and none of them really has the numbers to justify that this is actually the right solution. And this is just where I sit. I don't know from your side.
First of all, there has been great definitions of what telehealth is.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have their own definitions.
Yeah.
So I'll bring to context the way I understand it. You have the teleconsult, which is basically I call the doctor, they give me, or I can video conference the doctor and actually just talk to them, and they tell me that I think this is for you. And then you have the telemedicine side of things, which the telemedicine for me actually is using actual medical tools to actually give care. A doctor, like the solution we have that we've set up within our organization, the doctor is able to listen to the heartbeat using a stethoscope, see the skin using a dermoscope, have an otoscope to actually view how. And the resolution they get on their screens is quite huge. Sometimes probably might even be better than how they view it. So for me, that is what I call telemedicine. But there's still teleconsult, and there's still opportunities for us to still use teleconsult for all that. The best use case I've seen within Africa, I'm sure probably they are there, but I'll tell you the best use case I've seen within Africa. And it's something I've stumbled across recently. We had a group of guys who came to see us, and they were a group Italians. So the Catholic Church has different endeavors they've done across Africa. Then the education space, they're also in the healthcare space. And they have healthcare facilities across Africa. So there was an open source tool, an EMR called Dream, that they actually put it out there and made it accessible to EMR, electronic medical records, just for the sake of those guys who are listening. We have been accused. We've been accused us as healthcare guys of using different
some very heavy
terms.
Yes.
LAN1, SD1, all those funny terms. But for for Dream now, the Dream is an electronic medical record, and they made it accessible to all the healthcare facilities sitting under the Catholic, some of the Catholic Church, church medical initiatives that they have set up. And then they set up volunteers who sit in Italy, who during their free time, these medical professionals actually just log into the system, look at a particular case, and give prescribed medication to it. So what they did is they built a telehealth platform or telemedicine platform on top of it, which has captured all the triage details, medical images, all the lab results of particular patients. And it could just be a clinical officer or a doctor who said, to be honest, this case I don't know, I want to refer it out elsewhere because there's lack of specialists, doctors. The lack of specialist doctors cuts across Africa, cuts across Europe, cuts across the US. It's a global problem. And they say, since we only have one medical specialist, what I'll do is that I'll end up sending this thing to some guy in Italy. What these guys end up doing is just they review, they write their prescription, and they can actually be able to order for you a particular drug within that particular facility you are in, because they have access to the inventory through that EMR platform. And for me, I saw they've seen thousands of cases, thousands and thousands of cases through that platform. And the reason why I think they've been quite successful is that they've been simplistic in their approach to it. That the medical officer and the clinician who's basically giving care can just be able to log that request within 5 minutes. And that the doctor who's sitting there gets alerted either by phone or by email. And during their free time now when they sit down, they can actually be able to go through all those requests. The advantage with that is that sometimes with real-time service is that you may never get that particular doctor to be available at that particular time, because of geographical differences, because of schedule and all those things. So that use case has worked perfectly, and I see such use cases for me as actually key disruptors in making healthcare accessible and affordable.
It's been implemented here in Kenya? Or
yes.
Not yet? Oh.
Yes,
okay.
Actually during that time when we were sitting with these guys, I think 2 or 3 requests came from Kenya, but in Kenya it's not as big compared to the western side of they are particularly big in Mozambique, they're particularly big in the western side, Togo, Benin, those countries. Yes.
Okay, interesting. I'll probably check that out later on. But just as we come to a close, I'd like you to share what impact you would like to see on the digital health space for the people and for organizations and any other sector that you'd like to see this particular topic or this particular aspect impacting. What's the impact that you'd like to see?
In terms of impact, I think right now where we are sitting, where I sit, is we are driving conversations so that we have more collaborations and seeing how we can be able to partner more and be able to work together as opposed to operating in silos as different players in market. So we are trying to drive that. And the moment, because conversations are now happening, and that's brilliant, I'm happy that now we have platforms where we can have conversations and we can be able to work together. Banks did it 10 years back. That's why right now when you go with any card, you can do a PDQ swap on any bank PDQ. For us, we are now there. We are driving those conversations, and we know that healthcare will definitely get there. Where I would want us to be, this is where I would want us to be, and this is where I feel like digital technologies will change things. I've mentioned in the conversation that at the top of the pyramid, I feel, is the modeling part, but that's my own view. I'm sure there are different guys within the sector who have different varying views. But at the top of that is the modeling side, and that touches on financial modeling, which means depending on your socioeconomic status, what kind of healthcare can you be able to access? I'll say something offensive just along the way, but
please don't.
No. It's not offensive in terms of thought.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They say
That's
that
allowed.
to drive conversations, you must have the right to
Definitely.
you must have the right to offend or give a differing view. UHC, to make healthcare affordable, it doesn't have to be quality healthcare. It has to be at least giving some form of healthcare. The person who's sitting in Mandera today is not even, let's say some parts of Mandera are not accessing proper healthcare right now. The different thought is that start those guys with a clinician first. It doesn't have to be a medical officer. It can be a clinical officer. Enable that clinical officer through a digital. And the reason why I say that is offensive. So at the top of it, there's the financial modeling, which means depending on where you sit in the social economic status, you can be able to be given, we can sort out your healthcare needs. You can give 200 shillings a month, 100 shillings a month. At the end of it all, you can be able to access these particular products. Remember that we are talking about 2.2 million, I think, who are formally employed. There's a whole other batch that is informally employed. Make them be able to access healthcare through proper financial modeling. And that's using you're just looking at their social economic status. And the other one was really touching on the clinical side, the medical side. Now, since we have your data, which we know you come to this particular clinic, it might be a patient who's suffering from diabetes. How can we do some modeling for you that makes you access certain medicine that will be preventive, but you do not need to end up in the chronic management of it. You could be pre-diabetic, so that you do not end up to the chronic side, which is more expensive to manage. How can we be able to do that preventive kind of care of using digital technology? So there's also that modeling. So long as we are not yet there in terms of modeling to suit our patient needs, our country needs, then we still have some way to go. We are doing well now. We are on the second generation, I think, of medical record EMRs in the country. So there is a bit of that, which is happening. You'll probably see a lot of healthcare providers who are on the second phase of the EMR coming up and studying their data, and then in the long run starting to do a bit of that financial modeling. So that is going to come. And I feel like if where I sit, I'm able to drive conversations towards that, and then I feel like I will have my contributions. Yeah.
So financial modeling, that's the key thing. That's the key impact that you'd like to see with
financial and the
health.
clinical modeling of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So this has been such an interesting conversation, thought-provoking. Yes, you've shared quite a bit of insights. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation. So thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation.
Thank you for hosting.
And I'm glad you're actually at the forefront to push this conversation in the right channels with the right people so that we see the change that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
So thank you so much.
Asante sana.
Awesome.